how's your experience been being here in like Cape Town? Like, bro, you been here for a minute, you about to dip back out. Like, how you feel, like, overall, seeing the trenches, seeing the wealth, like, going and seeing the views, like, what's it been like? 'Cause it's your first time out here, too.
Yeah, I think my first time out here, it's been crazy. This whole experience has been amazing, fulfillment, I think the dynamic of what we just experienced yesterday made my trip complete, right? Because when you first get out here, you see Cape Town, and what you see is not necessarily what you think you're going to see, right? Because when you think of Africa, you only used to hearing about certain shit.
Right.
So when once you get here and then you see how beautiful it is, you see the beaches, you see the places, you see the cribs, you see how much further your dollar goes, you see how you can live, you see the accessibility. And then, of course, where we're at, we're in a very beautiful neighborhood, and like just the area, and this is just normal, right? And then
You go to the trenches.
you go to that side. The most beautiful piece about this place, bro, is that it inspires you to want to be better, like as a human. It humbles you when you go and you see something like that, right? Like, I feel like we've all we from accomplishing everything that we've been blessed to accomplish, to see some of the places and countries we've been able to see. It's really easy to get lost in your own story, right? And then you forget that we're all here and connected by each other to help one another and push each other forward. Like, that progression is what makes a lot of sense. And having a moment like yesterday, feeding over 500 people and connecting with people and playing with the kids. I think y'all said the other day, like, just to have fun. Looking at you like a superstar. Because you just wanted to have fun and you took time and space and received their energy, man. It was beautiful, bro. But I think so far that was one of my most beautiful moments here in Cape Town, because it made everything complete. There's certain things that mean certain stuff to us for a certain reason, but that's because we see life through a certain perspective. And a lot of folks can't even imagine see life through the lens of a child that's that innocent, and this is all they know.
But, like, bro, like, what gave you... How do you get to Cape Town, first of all, bro? Like, how do you get to the point to where, you from Chicago, and you was telling me the story how, like, when you was growing up, like, just a few years ago, it was the first time you were downtown. You know what I mean? Like, how do you go from, like, that to, like, being the person that been everywhere, bro? Like, I met you in Bali, then I knew you was out in Portugal, you was out in Thailand, you was out here, you was out there, went out to Amsterdam, you went everywhere, right? And now you just here casually chilling. Like, how do you even get to that point to be confident enough to just jump on a plane? So many people don't even leave their backyard.
That's a fact, bro. Well, to be fair with Chicago, I was born there, but then when I was raised in Iowa. So, but then again, my family, they in Chicago. So me not seeing Chicago downtown, it's crazy. The first time I see it, I'm 23.
Yeah. I mean, hold up, but okay. So you from Chicago originally, was kind of raised in Iowa. So what was it like being in Iowa? Because the only thing I think about in Iowa is just like cornfields and just white people that like big linemen, you know what I mean? Like Hawkeyes, you know what I mean? Like Cyclones and shit, right?
Cyclones and shit, you crazy. Yeah, no, Iowa is, it is. I mean, it's like, what, like 5-6% black folks. Like, it's not a huge population of black people, you know what I mean? And yeah, I was like, when we got to Iowa, I pretty much was raised there my whole life. I went to a school called Prairie. And so Prairie was known to have the most white people in a state where it's nothing but white people.
Right. Okay.
It was just like, it was a community, right? They had like the community districts and stuff like that. So I've been around that my whole life, right? But I always say this, though, because it wasn't that I didn't experience racism. It's just that I really didn't feel it. You know what I mean? Like, I think when I tell people, I grew up in Iowa, they automatically associate it with, oh, damn, like, you've been called everything in the book. You know what I mean? Like I'm over here getting lynched or some shit. Like, nah, it wasn't like that, bro. I think I always say growing up, your experience is what you make it. You know what I'm saying? And I feel as though, like, I had two parents who came from a background growing up in Chicago where, you know, my mother was a single child, you know what I'm saying, and was raised a certain way, and my father on a completely different side, you know what I mean, to the point where, you know, he was fending for himself and taking care of his family at 12 years old, you know what I'm saying, and being a part of that gang culture, but having the wisdom and understanding. I got a lot of respect for my father because when he got out of jail, he, you know, he took it upon himself to just be a better man. He didn't know what that shit looked like. And he was like, I'm going to do anything I can to be the best father that I can be. He marries my mother. Never leaves our side. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I think that taught me to, you know, measure a man based on his character and the merit of his soul rather than what he can provide and what he can do for you, things like that. Because, you know, he, about, you know, I mean, shit, you know, when your pops go to jail, it's, you know, they don't get opportunities like we might get because it, you know, the whole felony aspect of it. So I just had a lot of respect for how hard he would work just to provide for his family, however that looked. But we didn't see it. Like, you couldn't tell us that, you know, we didn't have certain opportunities because we just always felt like, okay, like things were taken care of. That was how it was in Iowa for me. Yeah, wasn't a lot of black folks, you know, ended up going to an all black university, HBCU, you know, nigga, what? Went to Skiggy. Shout out to the best HBCU in the land, goddammit. So, yeah, that was crazy. Because nigga, I went from all white to nothing niggas. To all black, you know what I mean? But nah, it was a cool experience, bro. Those were some of the best 4 years of my life. You know what I'm saying? Being there at Tuskegee. And I think that kind of opened me up. And it kind of like, that's when I feel like that whole ambition got activated. Because I had to figure it out. I'm in Alabama, 16 hours away from the crib. That's what started the travel thing for me. I hadn't got on a plane before that day when I was 18. You know what I'm saying? So that's when I had the confidence. Matter of fact, we didn't even get on a plane. We rode the car 16 hours. You know what I'm saying? To get me to camp. You know what I'm saying? When I was playing ball at the time. We drove it. And so my first time on a flight, bro, was, you know, I was 18. Coming back for Christmas. That holiday, because I didn't, But I think, like, being away from home, it wasn't even the fact to get on the plane. It was,
taking out of your environment.
And then I had the confidence because of that. Because now, bro, I just went away for 4 years. And I said I didn't do what I said I was going to do. And it wasn't the easiest thing. Sometimes it was rocky. It was up and down. But you found a way. And then I graduated in 4 years. And then I go into corporate sales. And I feel like I had some stability that I saw like a lot of my peers didn't have those opportunities. So I automatically started to think and associate myself with a certain type of way of thinking, right? Because I felt like, okay, this is what I deserve. This is who I am. This is what I'm working for. This is how life is going to go, right? And and I leaned into it. You know what I'm saying?
But how do you go from, okay, so now I feel like you like broke it down in stages. Like you went from like where you came from, you made that trip, then you went over to Alabama, right? And then you got into business and you started to do your thing when it came to school and then getting into like working, right? But like, I know so many people that they work, they got jobs, they got to that stage 3, but then at that stage 3, they still feel like they can't travel because, you know, maybe they're tied down to this job or whatever, right? So they can't really move around. But like, how do you go from like stage 3 to stage 4 to just being out in Cape Town, however long you want, gonna move out here, get the crib, you know, a humongous crib off the ocean and off the mountains, bro. So like, you know, what is that transition like? You know what I mean? You know, what is that like, bro?
It's crazy because I'm thinking back on it and like as I'm listening to you, yeah, bro. Yeah, I came a long way. You know, like looking back on it, 'cause I think like a lot of times, you know, we were talking about it. We don't realize that we're living the dream or the prayer that we once asked God to present us. You know what I'm saying? And because we're so busy, trying to figure out what's next. You know what I'm saying? And for myself, going and being in corporate sales, it's all I knew.
Right.
And a lot of times it's like what you don't know, right? But then once you know better, you do better. Right. You can't unsee what you already seen. Mm-hmm. So it's like once I got a taste of it, there's something about it that you want more of it. You get what I mean? So with I started noticing I was following like emotions and feelings, right? So like when I got to Texas, I got the promotion, I was on that whole corporate ladder, projection. You get what I'm saying? And then, with me and my boy, we started to build our first company, and we had a first taste of some success. And but what it did to me is it now opened my eyes like other possibilities. Still hadn't been nowhere. I went to Mexico, which was a pretty cool trip, right? That was like one of my first big trips outside the country. And that didn't happen, bro, until I was like 24. You know what I'm saying? But what it did was like, wow, okay, I like this. Right. You know what I mean? Like, this was cool. And then Mexico was all I knew for a minute. I'm like, this is cool. This is where you go when you leave the country. Right. You just hop over there, the border, go to Mexico. And I'll be honest, bro, for me, it wasn't until actually, and this might shock you, when my business, it started to hit a down spiral. Like, I was on a down spiral. Like, everything was going good. 2017, 2018, everything was great, right? And we started to really receive the fruits of our labor in 2019. Right. But it was also the craziest year. You know what I'm saying? My partner getting sent away with everything happening the way it did. And then towards the end of that year, I'm pretty much having a business that I got dissolved. I don't know where to start. And now I got to live on my savings. I'm like, how did I get here? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I remember literally sitting there crying in my car, trying to figure out what did I do? You know what I mean? Yeah. And it didn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't for me to know. So it gets to a point when you have to just rely on faith in those feelings and those emotions, because that's what's raw. And that's what's going to teach you your lessons, and that's also what's going to prevent you from making maybe those same mistakes. I remember that moment. I'm going to do whatever I can to not see that moment. Because I know exactly what it felt like. The moment somebody tells me what they went through, I connect to it. You get what I mean? So that was able to drive me. But to answer your question more specifically about the travel, when I was on that down spiral, I had a conversation with a brother of mine, and I was in a really weird spot. I was sleeping on my boy, Chuck couch, and I was just being security, at a bar. And I was like, yo, I got to figure this out. Like, I can't go back to corporate. Right. And because again, goes back to that conversation, I've already seen too much. Right. And if I went back to corporate, I just felt like it's not that you can't do it and travel. At that time, I didn't figure it out how. Right. You know what I mean? It was only in the office. Mm-hmm. So this was 2020. Had a conversation. My boy Carmichael was already out here traveling. Mm-hmm. He was moving and shaking. Now, this is a guy who I was able to relate to and connect to, because when we were both in Iowa at the time working on corporate jobs, he came from HBCU. Mm-hmm. We connected on the same stuff. We liked the same things. We liked to hoop together. We liked to do certain things. So I was able to relate to him as a man. And then I also heard the conversation. Mm-hmm. When he walked away from 6 figures, corporate job. I'm about to go to San Francisco and sleep on the couch and build my company. Right. And I thought he was crazy. And then he did it. And then he's traveling the world like a globetrotter. And I'm watching it happen. Mm. And I was inspired from afar, but I didn't think it could actually happen for me at the time. Mm. But what's for you is what's for you. You know what I mean? I always say, like, if you got a calling on your life, God gonna keep calling. Yeah. Like, it's not gonna just go away. Right. It shows back up. Mm-hmm. And so we had a conversation. I'm like, bro, I don't know what to do. All I know is I got to start something new. And he was like, bro, I believe in you. You got to get out of you got to leave. And I thought bro was talking about I need to go to like Florida or some shit. Right. He was like, nah, Joe, the only way you're going to get your answers is through isolation. You got to get out the country. And so I remember like it was yesterday. I sat there on the map. He said, hang up, find a place you want to go and call me right back. I don't know why the hell I picked Thailand, but I did. I picked it. And then I called him right back. He was like, all right, bet it's booked. And that's how I got my first trip outside the country, to a place where it was like completely isolated, in a place where I didn't know anything or anybody, and I just had to figure it out. And I was searching my soul, you know? And through that search is where I feel like I found the intentions of who I am. And I just wanted that was going to carry me through. It didn't matter about business. It didn't matter about opportunity. It mattered about who am I, what are my intentions, and what am I trying to, what is the life that I'm trying to lead with, right? The opportunities always found itself, bro. That's my experience. And I got addicted to that feeling.
Came a long way. I came a long way. But yeah, bro, like, especially I want to get a little bit, dive deeper into the creative process, right? Yeah. So like, talk about your book. So I know you're writing, right? And how has writing impacted your life? And yeah, because for me, writing has done everything for me. Sure. Like, writing is where I get my ideas from. Writing is where like I get my content from. Everything starts with my writing. If I'm not writing, then I might be watching stuff, and I'm watching stuff, then I'm getting inspired by other people. Then I start to look like they shit. So I gotta write to get my like thoughts out to be able to start creating stuff that's dope, right? Yeah. So like, what's that process like? What got you into even wanting to write a book? Like, what's going on with that?
Yeah, man. No, thanks for asking. The writing piece, that's something that's super like close to me. I've been writing poetry since I was like 14. 13, 14, I was just shy. It was something that I did because, I like the way words are. And then, the kid, you like to rap and stuff like that. So I think it really just started with that. I was trying to write my own raps. And then when I got to college, I got introduced to spoken word, right? And so I started performing like stuff that I would write, and I got a little bit of confidence then. Because I was able to like do different gigs and stuff. Because in the HBCU, like in the universities, it's like a thing, and and so I got more comfortable with writing, in college. It wasn't until outside of college I was like, okay, poetry's poetry, but then it got to a point I was writing for therapy, right? Because for me, like my mind, it'll get cluttered. I think like a lot. I don't think it's a bad thing. But it's like when I have a concept, when I have a thought, from a philosophy standpoint, I want to understand how I arrived at this thought. You get what I'm saying? And a lot of times I only get those answers is by talking myself through it, which comes in the form of writing, right? And if I can write that stuff down, looking back at it, I notice that, okay, this is really, really interesting. Reading back on my own thoughts out loud, it was like the most, like, to me, I'm learning from things that I wrote about 2-3 months ago.
And that's huge.
It became so intriguing to me to think about. It was like I became my favorite author, right? And that also inspired me to now want to write a book, right? So like in Bali, there was the thought there. I even like started like a little blog. I was trying to, do it, but that's a whole nother conversation in regards to consistency and wanting to push forward, but overall, I was looking for that creative, like, energy to just do it, Yeah, man, and I got super consistent. Then with traveling, you have so much to talk about, to write about. When you're going to a new place or a new country, you only can experience the first time. Right? And so, it don't matter where else you go, whatever you do, like, you're never going to see Cape Town again for the first time. It happened on February 9th, the day I landed. So like there's bliss in that moment. I want to remember and I want to take myself back there. So again, like I like to write because my writing, it gives me that emotion.
It's like capturing memories almost and being able to communicate that to other humans, which is crazy in the future. There's no way to do that. It was funny. Somebody was talking to me about like my favorite author or something like that. Yeah. And they were saying like, why do you care about books or why do you think it's so powerful? And I was just like, bro, like I'm talking to dead homies. I'm talking to mentors that are gone, but they may have lived 300 years ago. You can look at Marcus Aurelius and all these guys that lived almost thousands of years ago, bro. And you can literally get their thoughts and download some concepts which made them a ruler or a king or the Genghis Khan type of vibes, right? And it's just translated or it's passed down to us by writing. Yeah. And I think it's just so big that like now we have that opportunity and we let these days go by every day and not capturing all the thoughts that are in our head. And we have the ability to like to be able to pass that down to somebody, just because you were thinking, and we change every day. Like the way I think today is going to be completely different than the way I think tomorrow. So like you said, that I love that. Like when you first come to a place for the first time, or like we did the orphanage yesterday, like we went to the orphanage and we actually write down how we were feeling in that moment, then that inspires someone else to do the same thing, which can help generations to come, you know?
Yes, man. When you're vibrating that high, it's like you have to think, like, even from a writing perspective, the thoughts, everything that you're thinking about, that's coming from a frequency that you might not see consistently all day, every day.
Yeah.
Yesterday was a moment. You know what I mean? And the only way you can sometimes take yourself back to that moment is that raw emotion.
Right.
And for me, I get like to experience that raw emotion through my writing because it's vivid. You know what I mean? And it's clear, and I remember, like you said, like those memories. And I think it's very like, you know, serious that we be more conscious on how we embrace the day. Right? You talked about Aurelius Seneca, a Noah Stoic, you know, philosopher that I absolutely love. He has a quote, and he says that death is not a magical date in the future, right? It's every hour, every moment, every second of every day. You're dying. Like, you're not getting that back, right? So he viewed life as in, right now is all we have. And that's when they asked him, like, what kept him still? What kept him focused? What kept him dialed in to rule a nation the way he did, to go through the triumphs the way he did? And it was being present, never letting the moment get more bigger than himself, right? Because the moment you do that, this is when things get erratic, right? And a man that can't control his emotions, you can't trust.
Bro.
You know what I mean?
Yo, you're going deep here. Now we talking about presence. And I was on a hike, 2 days ago with a friend, and they asked me this question on like, how do they stop being so anxious? And they've been like having all this anxiety around all these decisions they need to make in their life. And I'm like, bro, just be present. And then they started to talk about like, how do I be present and stuff? And I'm like, well, okay, the future, like your anxiety, let's break this down, right? Yeah. But your anxiety is coming from you thinking about the future, which is your imagination, or you thinking about the past, which is your memory, which is just another form of imagination. So it's not you being in the present moment, because the only thing that's present is reality, and that's what's real. The only thing that's real is right now. So if you are thinking about the future, it's not real because it's imagination. If you're thinking about the past, it's not real because it's imagination. So the only thing you need to do is focus on the real, which is just right now, like breathing, looking at your fingers, this conversation right now. And a lot of things flow naturally, like the words flowing out of my mouth when I'm being present. The conversation is flowing, the podcast, the content, the businesses, the success, the travels, everything comes from you just being present and having a present game plan or a present thought about what you actually want, not thinking about what someone else wants, you know, projecting your imagination on what you may think other people want you to be like, but just being present and letting whatever pour out of you. So, man, I think it's so huge that you knocked on that verse, because I think that's the key to it all, right?
What do you think makes people resistant to be present?
I think it's a muscle almost, right? So like we practice everything at all the times. Like we may practice we practice the art of not being present by looking at things in the future. We practice our imagination all the time. For example, we practice our imagination when we're scrolling on Instagram and we're seeing what other people are thinking. And then all of a sudden we're thinking about what those people are thinking about, or what they're doing, or where they're at, or where I could be, or where you might be in the future. We're using that all the time, but we're not really practicing the art of being still, or the art of not thinking, right? So that's one thing I love about meditating in the form of hiking, because when you hike, it's forced meditation, as we're saying. Because if you're not present, then you're gonna fall, and that's gonna be a hard fall, especially when you on runs when you're hiking, right? So I think that you practice by doing those things that you love, and those things that you love that bring you into the present moment, like getting good at something, like playing paddle or something. You're practicing on being. The only way you win at a game at a high level is if you're present, because if you're not present, then you're not doing muscle memory. So for me, I love to meditate in the form of doing things that keep me in the present moment, like hiking, like deep conversations and stuff like that bring me into like how I'm feeling right now, and how do I focus on feeling good right now in the moment. So I say that's just my formula. But
no, that's a unique perspective, man. I think being present is I think it's like a superpower. You know, and because I think a lot of people take it for granted how busy life can get, And then when they allow themselves to stretch themselves thin, that's when that anxiety creeps up. That's when the stress creeps in, right? And you told me this the other day, like, yo, whatever you give power and attention to, you're going to see more of, right? And if you can find a way to give power to the right things, or to choose to let certain things go, right? Your energy has to flow one way or another, right? And so, and if you're feeding it to what you want, that thing's gonna blossom.
Straight up.
And your opportunities that you're gonna be presented with, it's going to be in alignment with where that flows. But if you're also feeding it to something like your ego, right, or whatever that vice of yours may be, that's going to grow as well. And then it's going to grow, and it's going to grow, and it's going to grow. And so one day it might bust, and you don't know what that looks like, right? So I think like having the awareness, having that intentionality, being secure, and also like aware, like, okay, this is who I am. I am not what I'm not, but I know where I'm going.
Straight up.
And I'm going to do what I got to do to get there in the alignment that I see myself in, right? And again, man, I think that's a choice, right? Being present is a choice.
It's a choice.
But it's definitely a skill. It's definitely,
Yeah, it's a skill. And people, people should practice it more. Because your energy, like you said, your energy goes where your attention
flows.
Exactly. So it just goes like there. So no matter what, whatever you're focused on, like your energy is going in that direction. So might as well focus on what's making you better. And usually that's just being in the present moment. Because then, but a trick for me was just to focus on feeling good now. Because we think about those words, and then we really break down the words of feel, like what is feeling, like you're physically feeling something. Sure. And then in good, you can use the word good or great or whatever right now in the present moment. Because as long as you feel good right now, no matter what's going on, if your cat just died, if you just lost a job, you got to move places, whatever it is, you're going through a breakup, whatever it is. If you focus on feeling good right now in this moment, like, oh, what do I feel? A little hot. Let's go a little cooler. Okay. After that, I feel like I want to go on a jog right now. It's going to make me feel good. Oh, I feel like taking a bath. I feel like meditating. Whatever it is, you just focus on feeling good right now in this moment. Everything else will work. You don't have to think about anything. The circumstances, situations, events, and people will come into your life. So I think ultimately that's the key to being present, just focusing on how you're feeling in the moment. And that's how you practice it, I guess, to go back to the question.
Yeah. So I want to follow with this question though, man, because you hit on something, and feeling good right now, that's a beautiful concept, especially when you say it out loud. It slows the moment down, right? But I think when we look at it from a perspective that why is it so hard to slow that moment down? Why is it so hard to be present sometimes? Why is it so hard just to feel? And I don't know, my mind automatically goes to like influence, right? And where like what's your take on the power of influence, right? When it comes to an individual, and do you give it power, right? Like how intentional are you with the influences, maybe around you or within yourself, or the energy that you do,
and people can't make you do something, but people can influence you to do things, right? So that is huge, and it is a big power. But I think that you have to understand that basically you are all you really need. You don't need to learn anything from anybody else. At the end of the day, you can keep learning from yourself. But by you learning from yourself, yes, you'll learn some things from other people. But ultimately, what I mean by that is you're a king. When you look at somebody else like, oh my gosh, Nelson Mandela was such a great guy. You are too. You are a great guy too. Nelson Mandela just believed in himself and his philosophies, and then other people followed. So the more we believe in our own philosophies and build our own confidence up, there's less influence from outside forces, because now you're influenced by yourself. And you're just being more of yourself. And that comes from being in the present moment. So I feel like a lot of people may struggle from being influenced by other people, or feel like it's hard to be present because they're looking outside to become in. And it's called mysticism, right? When you believe in something outside of yourself. But the more you believe in yourself, the more you believe in God, the more you believe in your powers, the more you believe in things flowing to you. The more you believe in what the law of attraction, you reap what you sow, religion, the more you believe in any practices or modalities based on just believing in yourself at the core of it. So all of the stories, when you look at the hero's journey, basically lead to the hero, which is, let's just say, in any story, let's just say superheroes, Superman, right? In the story of Superman, you got this guy who's from outer space or whatever, but then he like is on this self-discovery where he finds that he has power, then he finds that he has kryptonite, which is like the bad part, and he goes down. And then after that, he finds the bad guy and he beats the bad guy and he goes up. Then that's his hero's journey. But it's really just a story of him finding his own power. And the more he realizes, I'm Superman, he wins, right? And the same thing with the story of Jesus Christ. It's the same thing when it's the story of Muhammad, or the same thing when it comes to the literally any story. You can even look at negative stories with Hitler, the story we tell about him. He basically had a belief in himself, and then he believed it so much that he almost took over the entire world and made them believe what he believed. So I feel like we have that power inside of us to do that. But as long as we focus on believing in ourselves, and ultimately the way we believe in ourselves is we become more present with ourselves. So we can fall in the trap of other people's belief or influence. But I think the biggest way that you limit other people's influence on yourself is basically the same way you clean a room. Like if you put your keys in a room and you can't find the keys, it's because the room is too cluttery.